Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttamashlokir Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtki. Okay. So I'll read the Sanskrit translation and the purport, also the synonyms. Deham Manusham Ashritya Kati Varshani Rishnibi Yadu Puryam Sahavatsit Patnya Katya Abhavan Prabhu. Deham, body, Manusham, exactly like a man, Ashritya, accepting, Kati Varshani, how many years, Vrishnibi, in the company of the Vrishnis, those who were born in the Vrishni family. Yadu Puryam, in Dwarka, in the residential quarters of the Yadus. Saha, with. Avatsit, the Lord lived. Patnya, wives. Kati, how many? Abhavan, were there. Prabhu, of the Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has no material body, yet he appears as a human being. For how many years did he live with the descendants of Vrishni? How many wives did he marry? And for how many years did he live in Dwarka? Purport. In many places, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as Satchidananda Vigraha, possessing a spiritual, blissful body. His bodily feature is Narakriti, that is, exactly like that of a human being. Here, the same idea is repeated in the words Manushim Ashritya, which indicated that he accepts the body exactly like that of a man. Everywhere it is confirmed that Krishna is never Nirakara or formless. He has his form exactly like that of a human being. There is no doubt about this. I'll read the translation again. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has no material body, yet he appears as a human being. For how many years did he live with the descendants of Vrishni? How many wives did he marry? And for how many years did he live in Dwarka? Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapar Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyashta Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna, everyone. Good morning to this morning's Bhagavatam class. So first of all, I offer my respectful obeisances and ask for the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas who may be present here today, that I may be able to say something beneficial to everyone as well as to myself. So just to set what's going on in the Srimad Bhagavatam right now is the beginning of the 10th canto. The 10th canto is described as the face of the Lord. As the cantos go in concession, then we start at the feet, we see the body, and then we see the beautiful face of the Lord. So it is said that one should not immediately go to this the 10th canto. One should go in consecutive nature in the Bhagavatam. Of course, Srila Prabhupada wrote the Krishna book, which is the condensed version of the 10th canto, and actually they were distributing the 10th canto all over the world the Krishna book all over the world for where people can read the pastimes of Krishna. So it's a wonderful the wonderful leelas of Krishna have to be heard by the devotees so we can understand who Krishna is, where he lives, who he associates with. I'll cover that later. But the first point I wanted to make was that Parikshit Maharaj is now inquiring about Krishna, as it says in this verse. How many years did he live with the descendants of Vrishni? How many wives did he marry? And for how many years did he live in Dwarka? So he's inquiring from Sukadev Goswami. Even though he was fasting, he was inquiring very eagerly of what of Krishna and his pastimes. And so the thought that came to my mind was the way we should be inquiring to the devotees, to our spiritual master, as it says in the Bhagavad Gita 4:34. Everyone knows this very famous verse, that vidi pranipatina pariprashnena sevya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. There's 3 points in this verse. Pranipatena, which means surrender. Pariprashnena means to ask submissive questioning. And sevaya, service. So what does pranipatena mean? Surrender means, one Vaishnava described it as, I am finished with whatever is going on in this world, and I offer myself at your altar. I'm done with whatever this world has to offer. As we all know, we're not citizens of this world. We're citizens of the spiritual world. We're only here for a very, very short time, 100 years, 70 years. This is not the actual reality. The actual reality is somewhere else. So when one understands that, when one comes to that conclusion that I'm finished with everything here, then I offer myself at your altar to the spiritual master. And then pariprashnena, offer inquiry, just as Parikshit Maharaj is doing here, asking different questions about Krishna, his pastimes, who he associates with. And then sevaya, offering oneself in service, practical service to the spiritual master. So this is the process of inquiry. And I found this very, the way Parikshit Maharaj was doing this in the beginning of this chapter, in the beginning of this amazing 10th canto. This is the way Parikshit Maharaj was inquiring. So the other point that comes out in this verse is the form of the Lord. So it says here that the Lord is never Nirakar or formless. The tendency in this world is that forms have always disappointed us. They have always disappointed us. So there is a tendency to go towards the formless. That's why certain in religions or certain religions, they advocate that the supreme or the divine, the highest form of the divine is the formless. And when I say that form has disappointed us, what do I mean by that? I mean that whatever we see, whatever forms we see, even in ourselves and our friends, they've always withered, they have always died. So form is always constantly changing. And that's what I mean by disappointment. So to combat against that disappointment, there have been philosophies made that the Lord has no form. The highest conception of God is that he is formless. He cannot have a form. So that is in itself is limiting to the Lord. If you say that the Lord is formless, that's like when we talk to people about deity worship. Some people say, how can you limit the supreme to have a form of the deity? That means you're limiting him in whatever wood or stone or whatever. And then then the answer to that is that how can you say that he cannot come into that form? That's even limiting him further. That you're saying that he cannot take a certain form. So the form of the Lord is completely transcendental, as it says here, Satchid Ananda Vigraha. Satchid Ananda. Sat means eternal, Chid means full of knowledge, and Ananda means full of bliss. It's described in the Brahma Samhita in that verse. Satchid Ananda Vigraha, Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarna Karnam. He's the cause of all causes. The highest form, the highest or the most complete form of the Lord is Govinda, the cowherd in Vrindavan. And so there are some verses that I wanted to share here describing the form of the Lord and what has to do with the form of the Lord. So the first one that came to my mind was Bhagavad Gita 9:11, very famous verse. Avajananti mamuda manishim tanamashita param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. So the Lord came to this world 5,000 years ago, and he performed his pastimes on this earth. Let's read a little bit of the purport, Srila Prabhupada's commentary on this verse. From other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he's the original Supreme Personality, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. So here is saying that the Lord has so many potencies. The Lord has so many has so many energies. He cannot be a human being because the human being has so many, as we know, being in human bodies has so many limitations. The four defects, the tendency to make mistakes, the tendency to be illusioned, the tendency to cheat. And the fourth one, which I can't remember at the moment. So these are limitations, imperfect senses. So many limitations. We don't even know what's going to happen beyond these four walls. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, my family's in the next room, but what's happening exactly there? I don't know what's going. My senses are completely imperfect. I cannot detect that at all. The tendency to cheat. There's always a tendency. We see so much going on in this world, a tendency for people to cheat and to be cheated. The tendency to be illusioned, just as, you see a magic trick. You see someone doing, it's actually absolutely amazing the way magicians can do magic tricks. So we don't know what the reality of what they're doing is. We always try to understand, how is he actually doing that trick? But we don't know because we have that tendency to be illusioned. And to be mistaken. Always the human body is always mistaken. So the Lord does not have these tendencies and these defects. He's completely pure. He's completely omniscient. He is completely perfect. Let's continue to read on here. There are many Ishwaras, controllers, and one appears greater than the other. In the ordinary management affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, above him is a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world, but Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishvara Parama Krishna, and his body is Satchidananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he's not a common man, the fools deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here Manushim because he's acting like a man, a friend of Arjuna, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. So this is in the context of the battle of Kurukshetra. Those who saw Krishna considered him to be an ordinary person. They didn't, or an ordinary charioteer of Arjuna. They did not see the Supreme Lord. There's that story in the Mahabharata where Krishna appears and comes as a messenger to tried to avoid this war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And so he came as an ordinary messenger to Duryodhana and to Dhritarashtra, the king. And those who saw, there were so many people who saw him there in that court. But there are those, and then what happened was they tried to arrest Krishna, even though he was a messenger, and saying, hey, listen, all the Pandavas want are 5 villages, and we won't have this war. And Duryodhana said, I will not give you as much land that will fit on the end of a needle. And so he tried to arrest Krishna, and Krishna showed a amazing form, similar to the universal form. But many people there only saw a bright light. They did not see actually Krishna's amazing form. The only people who saw his form were those whose eyes were anointed with love, who were devotees, like Bhishma, Vidura. They actually saw Krishna's form. Everyone else saw something else. So this is what it means that those foolish people, they think him to be an ordinary man. Continue reading on. In so many ways, he's acting just like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Satchidananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic knowledge also. Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya, I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. Tam ekam govindam, you are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Satchidananda Vigraha, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, and bliss, and eternality. Despite the transcendental qualities of Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of the Bhagavad Gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. So this is the amazing, unique contribution of Srila Prabhupada in his translation and purport of the Bhagavad Gita. This is. Can we have everyone mute themselves, please? Thank you. So this is the contribution of Srila Prabhupada's version of the Bhagavad Gita. This is coming from the bhakti eyes of a devotee, of a pure devotee. This is not coming from someone who sees Krishna as a historical person or someone mundane or someone ordinary. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his relationship with his devotee. His devotee is inquiring from him, and he is giving the highest knowledge, the most confidential knowledge to his devotee. And what is the pinnacle of that is surrender unto me, do not fear. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vaja. And perform, always think of me, become my devotee. This is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. But in other conclusions, in other versions of the Bhagavad Gita, this is not the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. It can be something else. It can be that, the whatever it may be, but that is not the conclusion of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita or our lineage's conception of the Bhagavad Gita. Let's continue reading on here. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, and that he is the proprietor of everything that be and can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. Anyway, this purport is very long, and this is the point of the verse, that the fools deride Krishna because they do not know that he is, they think of him as mundane and ordinary. Let's continue reading other verses that are addressing this point. This is in the 5th canto, 5th chapter, 19th verse. My transcendental body looks exactly like a human form, but it is not a material human body. It is inconceivable. I'm forced by nature to accept a particular type of body. I take on a body I'm not forced by nature to accept a particular type of body. I take on a body by my own sweet will. My heart is also spiritual, and I always think of the welfare of my devotees. Therefore, within my heart, therefore, within my heart can be found the process of devotional service, which is meant for the devotees. Far from my heart, I have far from my heart have I abandoned irreligion and non-devotional activities. They do not appeal to me. Due to all these transcendental qualities, people generally pray to me as Rishabdev, the supreme personality of Godhead, the best of all living entities. So this is spoken by Rishabdev in the 5th canto. So he says he's not forced by nature to accept a particular type of body. This is a great point, because we are completely forced to accept a material body. Whatever, for many millions of births, we've been forced to accept certain types of bodies, whether it's an animal body or aquatic or human, but now we are in the human form of life. We've been forced into a certain type of body, a certain type of situation. The Lord does not have this situation. He can take any kind of form that he wishes, according to the way he wants to reciprocate to his devotees. As we've seen in the Srimad Bhagavatam up until now, how many different forms the Lord has taken. So many wonderful forms. One that comes to mind is the Lord Nrsingadev. Nrsingadev, what an amazing form, just to fulfill the desire of his devotee, to protect his devotee. He had a workaround of Brahma's boons to Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu thought, there's no one who can take on all these, who can kind of go down the list of all the different things that I asked Brahma and work around them. And so far, the Lord did. Amazing. I will not be killed by man or animal. He wasn't either of them. I will not be killed by weapons. He wasn't killed by any type of weapon. He was killed by nails. Nails are considered like, because they're kind of dead and they're alive at the same time. He will not be killed in day or night. It was at twilight. So this amazing Varahadev, a boar. How can we think of the Lord to take a form as a boar? But he was the most beautiful and most transcendental. The way he went into pick up the earth with his tusks. So these are the different forms that the Lord has taken that we can contemplate on, that we can try to understand the activities of the Lord. Why did he take on these forms? And again, the main point is he's not forced to take on a form like we are. That's what makes him the supreme. Let's read the purport of that verse. In this verse, the words idam sharidam mama durvibhyam are very significant. Generally, we experience two energies, material energy and spiritual energy. We have some experience of material energy because in the material world, everyone's body is composed of all these elements. Within the material body is the spirit soul, but we cannot see it with the material eyes. When we see a body full of spiritual energy, it is very difficult for us to understand how the spiritual energy can have a body. It is said that Lord Rishabdev's body is completely spiritual. Therefore, for a materialistic person, it is very difficult to understand. For a materialistic person, the completely spiritual body is inconceivable. I just want to make one point about that, is that when a sannyasi leaves their body, it's not cremated like the way that a regular person's body is treated, because it said that the sannyasi's body has the mind, the words, the body, everything is used completely in the Lord's service. So the body is spiritual, and therefore we don't burn the body, but we encase the body in a samadhi, in a tomb, just as Srila Prabhupada was. His body was not cremated, but his body was put into the ground in samadhi in Vrindavan, and then there was a huge samadhi, as you all know. A samadhi was erected there, And so devotees can visit that place where that spiritual light, the complete spiritual body, essentially would look like it was material, but it was because it was used fully in the service, surrendered fully in the service of the Lord, that's considered a spiritual. It's considered spiritual. We have to accept the version of the Vedas when our experimental perception cannot understand a subject. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha, the Supreme Lord has a body with form, but that body is not composed of material elements. It is made of spiritual bliss, eternity, and living force. So the Lord has a body, but it's not a body like ours. He doesn't have it's not like a soul. We have our material body, and then we have our subtle body, and then our spirit soul. It's not like that. His body is what we see, and everything is complete spirit. By the inconceivable energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord can appear before us in his original spiritual body. Because we have no experience of the spiritual body, we're sometimes bewildered and see the form as material. The Mayavadi philosophers are completely unable to conceive of a spiritual body. They say that the spirit is always impersonal, and whenever they see something personal, they take it for granted that it is material. Yeah, so the Mayavadis, they say, okay, Krishna might have been here an historical person, but he has a material body like all of us. Not that he has a spiritual body, because they can't conceive of a body that's complete spirit. Everything, the highest form has to be impersonal for it to be something, spiritual. It has to be something impersonal. So then he quotes this verse that I just said, 9:11, Avajananti Mamuda. So we can easily understand the material body, but we cannot understand the spiritual body. Therefore, Rishabdev says, Idam Sharidam Mama Durivibhyam. In the spiritual world, everyone has a spiritual body. There is no conception of material existence there. In the spiritual world, there's only service and the receiving of service. There is only sevya, seva, and sevaka, the person served and the process of service and servant. Let's read another verse that illustrates these points, that the Lord takes, so that it's also seen that the Lord takes birth in the first canto, in the 10th canto. We'll see that the Lord appeared in the jailhouse from, the union of Devaki and Vasudeva. So this is in the 10th, this is later in the 10th canto in the 3rd chapter, 46th verse. Sukadeva Goswami says, after thus instructing his father and mother, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna remained silent. In their presence, by his internal energy, he then transformed himself into a small human child. In other words, he transformed himself in his original form. Krishna stu Bhagavan Swayam. So the original form of Krishna is the two-handed form of Govinda. Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sambhavamya Atmamaya, whatever is done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is done by his spiritual energy. Nothing is forced upon him by the material energy. This is the difference between the Lord and the ordinary living being. That's that point I already made here. Parasya Shaktir Vivadaiva Shriyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriya Cha. It is natural for the Lord to be untinged by material qualities, and because everything is perfectly present in his spiritual energy, as soon as he desires something, it is immediately done. The Lord is not Prakrita Shishu, a child of the world, but by his personal energy, he appeared like one. So the Lord appeared like a child when he appeared 5,000 years ago in that jailhouse of Kamsa. This is for his unlimited and beautiful pastimes that he came as he took birth. Non-believers say, how can the Supreme Controller descend as an ordinary being? Their sort of thinking is materialistic. Srila Jiva Goswami says that unless we accept the energy of the Supreme Personality God as inconceivable, beyond the conception of our words and mind, we cannot understand the Supreme Lord. Those who doubt that the Supreme Personality Godhead could come as a human being and turn himself into a human child are fools who think that Krishna's body is material and he's born and therefore he dies. Just as one, the example is given of like the sun, one who thinks like the sun appears and is like who sees it rising and they think, oh, the sun is now born. It's a foolish thing to think, because those who know better know that the sun appears and disappears somewhere else, away from our vision. And so the Lord is in the same way. The Lord appears in a pastime, in a form, and then he disappears. This doesn't mean he took birth and then he dies, just like an ordinary person does. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we approach the Lord's form. A little bit about deity worship. I was mentioning earlier that the deity, one who, it's also said, I think I had this verse, that one who thinks the spiritual mass to be ordinary person, the one who thinks the deity to be ordinary material stone or wood, they're considered to be very foolish. So the deity, when the deity in the temple is installed, what the ceremony that happens is that by mantra, the form that we see, that material, is broken down and it's rebuilt with the mantra. And so that is directly the form of the Lord. The Lord is asked to come descend into that form of whatever that deity is made out of. And so this is an amazing contribution of Srila Prabhupada, that he established deity worship all over the world. So we could come to the temple, we could come to be with the devotees and take darshan of the Lord directly. This is directly the Lord when we come to the temple. But it has to be an authorized form, just as the example is given of the mailbox. You can't just put a box, like I can't just go out to my street there and put a box there and write, U.S. Post Office, a cardboard box, and expect that the mail will come there. The form of the Lord has to be authorized. It has to be the mailbox has to be an authorized U.S. Postal Service. It has to be an authorized box that has certain characteristics, has certain features, and then the mail will come. So in the same way, the deity cannot be something we just imagine that Krishna will look like, or the deity will look like, and then we expect that the deity appears there. No, it has to be an authorized form according to the shastric injunctions. The Lord looks like this. The Lord's form is like this. His arms are like this. His legs are like this. And then the prana pratishtha can happen of the deity. And so this form is not a material form. It's a completely spiritual form of the Lord that we come to pray to come and to worship. So that's why deity worship is a very potent form of devotional service. It's one of the main 5 angas of devotional service. For 5 angas being worshiping the deity, chanting the holy name, studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, and living in a holy place. So deity worship is the main point of deity worship, or worshiping the form of the Lord, is that we keep ourselves very clean, we're very punctual, and we're able to come to the mode of goodness. If you're in the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, you're not able to worship the form of the Lord properly. But one has to come to the mode of goodness to worship the deity. That's what's taught in the Archana Padati, the procedure of worshiping the deity. One of the main points is that there's cleanliness and there's punctuality. And what does that mean? It means the mode of goodness. So another ways of approaching the Lord, the main point of approaching the Lord's form is with love and devotion, as says in the Bhagavad Gita, Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskru. Think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer homage unto me, and thus you will come to me without fail. And also, one who knows the form and transcendental activities Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activity does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So how do we do that? How do we know the appearance, the nature of the appearance of the Lord and activities of the Lord? By reading, by understanding, by associating with devotees of the Lord and hearing the pastimes of the Lord. Just like I was thinking when I was reading this, was that there's so much inquiry into so many material things in this world. We're inquiring about so many things, just as like so much going on in the world right now. There's so much inquiry, inquiring about this, inquiring about that, questioning this, questioning that. But these are actually questions of the material world and not about reality. We have to inquire the same way Parikshit Maharaj inquired. What is the inquiry of the Lord? What is the Lord doing? Who is the Lord associating with? What activities are they performing? What amazing pastimes is the Lord performing? These are the inquiries that we should have, not inquiries of this mortal, temporary world. That's what the news is. That's what newspapers are, and magazines and media. These are inquiries into things that will change like this, daily just changing, daily just distracting. But what, as devotees of Krishna, what is our inquiry meant to be of? So many amazing...
They're changing, but they're also at the same time the same.
Yes, they're changing,
but it's the same thing.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's the same thing every day, same thing. As you know, we for so many years we've inquired about material things, and have we got any satisfaction in inquiring? No. But what satisfaction can inquiring about the Lord give? So much deep satisfaction. Abhadrani, all the dirty things within the heart, all the misgivings within the heart, completely destroyed by inquiring about the Lord and his pastimes, hearing about them and understanding them. And so I guess the main takeaway I would say here is that the Lord's body is not material, it is spiritual, and his pastimes are completely transcendental. And if we inquire like Parikshit Maharaj, we can get so much satisfaction in our heart. We can get rid of all the misgivings, and we can become completely detached from the world, and we can become completely satisfied. And so every day, I'm speaking to myself, every day we should try to inquire. Every day we should try to absorb ourselves in the activities of Krishna and not of this world, because that's where our satisfaction really lies. So thank you everyone for patiently listening. If we have any questions or comments or challenges or anything, I'd love to have a discussion. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Namras Prabhu. Devotees, unmute yourself. Feel free. Let's do it. It's Srimad Bhagavatam. Questions and answers. Reflections. I just wanted to reflect quickly. Namras Prabhu was talking about the news, how they're useless information. I was thinking, yeah, the news are the same. It's just the names are different, but the essence is the same. And when we look at the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or scripture, the letters, the numbers of the verses are the same. They don't change. But every time you look at any given verse, it always brings about a different realization. I just found that interesting.
Yes, because it's not something of this material world. This is complete spiritual. The literatures, it's spiritual energy. So it's not going to be the same as a material thing would be. Material things have their, it's like have their beginning and end. But spiritual activities. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Adipurush Prabhu.
We've been trying to stop at 1:45 so that there's time for discussion, but we have to go now.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Wonderful class. Okay. Athena has something to share.
Okay. Yes, Athena.
Actually, please finish your thought. Thank you so much.
Oh no, I was just saying that material news and material news of the material world, it has its beginning and it has its end, and there's no satisfaction in it. Just the point that I was making.
Thank you so much. It's so funny. I'm telling myself I really should have waited to respond to this one kind of discussion until after I heard your session, because it was just so amazing and great. You provided so much pramana for just Krishna's form and who he is and how foolish. I left it a few hours ago last night, and I really should have just waited because I had to rehear this and just note down everything. It was so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I guess I just, in discussions where, again, even in any theological discussion, one isn't trying to, say, convert one person from one religion to another.
Right.
Common thing when it's just, some people can't wrap their heads around that God would even come down and that he has form and what he has reciprocate. It just, and as much as you try to even show them, they just can't kind of see that. One that I like to share, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, is that even if they believe that God has form, it's just any, say, deity or picture of God, it just can't even capture the magnificence and the do God justice. And even if God were to come down, it's like I know we need transcendental eyes to truly see like Krishna. Many, as you said, couldn't. But even that just can't do God justice, and it would not be befitting of God's majesty to even come down in form when one can't even conceive it. So I'm just curious your thoughts around that.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's definitely a question I'm sure many devotees get. The main thing that I would say is that one's eyes have to be anointed with the love, with the salve of love, to see any form of the Lord, or else the Lord will be considered material, or he will seem like, how can this be the Lord? If the love is not there, if the devotion is not there, just as, okay, we may say this is not the complete, we see some deities in Vrindavan, they seem kind of old, or they seem kind of incomplete. Or we see Lord Jagannath's incomplete. But why do we see Jagannath in his form? Why do the devotees see him with so much love? Why do they see him as the complete Lord, as the Lord? Even though it's inconceivable, why do they see him as the Lord? Because there's so much love towards the Lord that this is Krishna. This is how Krishna has descended himself. And so whatever way he descended himself, whatever the way the deity looks like, this is my Lord. So I would say that, yeah, it's understandable. People can think that, okay, how can the Lord come down? It's not just, the Lord is so unlimited that this wouldn't even do him justice. But when one's eyes are when one has that love for Krishna, then any form that the Lord comes in, any form, just as, Nrsimhadev is a kind of like a terrible form, but Prahlad saw him, this is my Lord. He came because of his love, because he called him, this is my Lord, however he comes. So that's what I would say. I don't know if that answers your question or brings any more thoughts to that, but that's what I would say. That there's that love factor that we can't underestimate.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll just add, just with any kind of picture or even deity, again, you must see with eyes of love and devotion. And it just made me realize, just like when you see your partner, right, they're just more beautiful. You just see with different eyes, right? And another very person just be like, this random person, they don't see the deity. And so I just thought of that. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a relationship. There's the relationship behind. If there's no relationship, that's a great point that you make. You see someone, you just see an ordinary person. It's just a person on the street to you. But for that person's significant other, that person's the world to them, because of that relationship. Thank you. A few other people.
Bhima Prabhu's spiritual form would like to share something.
Yes, please.
Bhima Prabhu,
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
At Namraj, your program's great, man. Your program that you have, that
Thank you.
podcast, it's a great
Thank
thing.
you.
You're like the Joe Rogan of spiritual life. Man,
Thank
you
you.
take on some subjects. Yeah, lean into it. Lean into it.
Thanks,
You're
Prabhu.
protected for sure. Just wanted to say that we always have to remember, and perhaps you can help me out with this, Namras. I'm just a simple cow hand here. The verse where Krishna says, as one approaches me, I reveal or I reciprocate accordingly.
Yes.
And of course, Krishna's reciprocation is revelation from within. And so when Krishna's pleased, see, Prabhupada, it just always shook me up when I first came to Krishna consciousness. He calls Krishna the Transcendental Autocrat, meaning he can do what he wants when he wants. He can be pleased not to like you. You know what I mean? Not to like pay attention to you, to dismiss you. Of course, he knows that just gets us going more so. But
Yes.
If Krishna is pleased by your, of course, approaching him with love, then he reveals himself accordingly. So it is that magical mystery tour of Krishna's Goloka and Krishna's wonderful form, is that if we act as if Krishna is present, then guess what? So that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
And once again, great class. Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. Great point. Anyone else raising their hand? No. Okay. I think we can end there.
There's some appreciation in the chat from Emily.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Namras Prabhu. Thanks everyone.
Hope everyone has a great day. Trying to think of Krishna and have whatever you're doing in the rest of your day. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Think of Krishna. Don't limit him. Don't limit Krishna.
Yes. And news of the spiritual world, not news of the material world.
Yes. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.